Top 3. Fort Eben Emael was the centerpiece to the Belgian defense system. Just one of several forts many thought would be a deterrent to any enemy attempting an invasion of Belgium. 12 forts ring the town of Liege, which is 40 kilometers south of Fort Eben Emael. Many of these forts can be visited today. The fort website includes information about these other Liege forts. The fort is open for tours on special weekends, which allows visitor access to the underground areas of the fort. Information on these weekends can be found on the fort website. A link to the website is also available on this site. The underground tours are carried out by volunteer guides whose knowledge and passion for the history of the fort makes for an educational visit. The fort, for all intents and purposes, was a city as over 1,000 men were expected to spend days underground waiting and preparing for an attack. A typical visit will start with you freely exploring the lower level. In the lower area, the men lived, slept, and was the administrative hub of the fort. You can also visit the many rooms where there are now located information films, museum rooms, and period-created rooms that reflect the men and purpose of the rooms, such as hospital, church, barracks, dental office, and even a detention area. From the lower level, there are 2 access points to the intermediate tunnels. This area can only be visited while accompanied with a guide. Guides are available to give tours in various languages. These tours of the intermediate area take place throughout the day when the fort is open. You can also access the underground through arranged private visits. If you are interested, you can contact appropriate personnel for information provided on the fort website. Your guided tour will access the intermediate level through one of the stairwells leading from the lower level. There are kilometers of tunnels that can be followed to any part of the fort. One of these areas, located off the intermediate level, is a series of rooms that form the Combat Operational Center and was used by senior officers during battle times. These rooms were in communication with the various batteries and blockhouses, and during a battle were the main communication and fire coordinating center for the artillery and defense of the fort. It was here that the fort commander and officers would plan, strategize, and coordinate fire missions between the batteries and observers outside the fort. All communication from the various part of the forts to all the networks outside the fort went through this communication post found on the intermediate level. The third level of the fort are the various tunnels, steps, and stairwells that lead to the various fort emplacements. Each emplacement had its own access point from the intermediate level. This would include all the blockhouses, artillery, and defensive emplacements. Again, you might want to try and take in one of these tours led by the volunteers through the underground tunnels. Back to our tour outside. You are standing in front of the 2-story Block 1 structure. This was the central pivot point of the fort. The massive concrete construction is the same general design of the other 4 blocks found around the exterior of the fort. Because this was the main entrance to the fort, the entrance itself featured a heavy gate, and the roadway to the fortress incorporated a rectangular wooden section that created a 4-meter deep gap impassable to men and vehicles. If you look through the gate, you will be able to see a machine gun emplacement in a protective embrasure that was intended to engage any enemy that penetrated the outer defenses. Anyone who tried to scale the gap in the roadway could be eliminated by grenades dropped through special slots in the wall. Some of these slots are marked with grenades just inside the door. The block is set into the wall and the steep slopes surrounding St. Peter's Hill. As the blockhouse was also the fort's entrance, it was particularly well armed. 2 lieutenants, 3 corporals, and 23 soldiers manned a small headquarters, 2 searchlights located behind bulletproof glass, 2 machine guns, and a pair of 60mm anti-tank guns covering arcs to the north and west respectively. Guns of 60mm caliber were large for the 1930s and were claimed to be effective against tanks of the day at 3,000 meters. In common with all the defense blockhouses, there was a small cast steel observation bell sited on the top of the emplacement. We are now ready to access the various emplacements found further up the hill. You can access the stairwell that is found to the left of Block 1. The stairwell will take you behind Block 1 and to the top of St. Peter's Hill. Once you reach the stairway, you can begin listening to Stop 4 while walking up the path to our first artillery encampment called These 2.